And class is in session. You're listening to Shit Shooting 101. I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Joining us today, the Common Core diva, but an uncommon ally, a rare force, a unique dove in the flight of consciousness, an extraordinary raven in the fight of intelligence, an unparalleled secretary bird in the slaying of serpents. She, you, and I are all of a feather, so let us flock together in welcoming Lynne Taylor back to the show. Lynne, welcome, my friend.
Thanks so much, Joshua. That was very ingenious. I loved all the alliteration in there. That was really cool. So thank you so much for that introduction. And boy, have we got a topic to dive into.
Yes, indeed we do. So much to discuss, so little time. So let's just jump right in. What is RX Kids, and how is it using the semblance of good to take ownership over our children?
Okay, RX Kids is a program that was basically hatched up by people thinking, oh, we're going to take the town of Flint, Michigan, and we're going to create this one-of-a-kind program where we incentivize those who are pregnant, especially targeting the low income families. We're going to target them to incentivize them having a child. And not only will the mom be able to receive X number of dollars a month for 1 year, but her newborn child will be as well. Now, one of the things that I found out in looking at the program is while it might be pilot in its nature of the very kind of program that it is, universal basic income throughout America has many cities that are being used as program hubs for this same type of dependence, where we're going to take public-private partnerships, we're going to blend them all together, especially in the name of education, because after all, RX Kids is all on the premise, Joshua, that if we incentivize mom and her new baby for the first year, we're going to get a better outcome when they get through with school. And the more I researched the universal basic income programs throughout the nation, this same premise was popping up. And so, when I got to looking at the program that's in the county next over to me called One Church, One Kid, or excuse me, One Church, One Child, I was absolutely flabbergasted, because you have all these churches that are aligning themselves with the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Social Services, to give free clothing, meals, homes, everything they possibly could give away free for targeting low-income families so that there's a better outcome at school. Come to find out, this is going on in several states and has roots in Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah, and they're always going after the low income families on everything because it's easier to get them to accept incentives when they're in desperation mode. And they're trying to push us all in that desperation mode so that we'll all accept all of these incentive programs, and little by little, more and more people are. And when it comes to RX Kids, that title, the RX alone, when you look up where that comes from, some people say it came from the Eye of Horus, so it might have, reference to the all-watching eye. And so other people say it comes from the Latin for recipe. And our kids definitely aren't a recipe. It's not you just throw these ingredients in and bake it and out pops a kid ready for the world. You raise a kid, and you raise them so that they can raise themselves further on and then raise their next generations thereon. Either way, the pharmaceutical implications, it's almost saying as if your child is born diseased just by the sake that it has a life. It is needing diagnosed and treated.
Yeah, and a part of the program's parameters are that you have to dance to the tune of every medical benchmark that the program has tied to it. This One Church, One Child program, very much the same premise. Now, the reason why I bring up Chicago is because we have, back in the 1980s, there was a Father Clements Now, one report will, or a couple of sources will tell you that he was tied to the Baptist church. Come to find out, he was a Roman Catholic father. And he was very, very concerned about the number of Black children in Chicago who were not being taken care of. So his whole program was built that the Catholic Church and other churches would come along, create a unified body to marry their outreach to the Chicago public government system so that these children could be adopted. Now, present day, we have in Oklahoma an adoption program that is modeled precisely after this one that started in Chicago. And it tells you here from the program note, the Oklahoma program is modeled after the One Church, One Child of Illinois, which was founded in 1980 by Father George Clements, who was at the time a pastor of the Holy Angels Catholic Church at Chicago. And it goes on to tell you that the program is sponsored by the Oklahoma Department of Human Services Child Welfare Services in partnership with a board of directors for the One Church, One Child program. If you look at Louisiana, I think in the show notes, you're going to have links for Virginia, Louisiana, Ohio. Every one of these states is coming at this same model program that somehow children are in need of being fixed or prescribed this or that, that the government is the only one that can fix the problem. And if you look at the parameters for like Oklahoma's program, here are the parameters, dear. First of all, you have to be able to love someone that you didn't give birth to. Second of all, you have to be at least 21. You have to own or rent your own home. You have to be financially responsible without the government's reimbursement, which means there's going to be money tied to this. And we know with money comes control. You also, anyone who is in the household who is at least 18 years and up has to submit. Now, you can't opt out of this. You have to submit to a background check. And then you have to submit yourself to X number of hours of government training on how you should run your family.
And that one child or one church, one child, there's more of that homogenizing language, just as you have with one world, one government,
Right.
one religion. Whatever happened to the cries of the separation of church and state that we used to have? You don't hear it from anybody on any level of the political spectrum these days.
And that's a fascinating point to bring up, because as I was looking at all this and when I, was researching the program in Flint, it was just, where is that separation? Because I can remember hearing it coming up that, oh yeah, that is part of our government, is that we were supposed to separate church and state. Well, no. In one of Jefferson's personal letters, he wrote that sentiment, but it was never in our founding documents. We do know one of the reasons why the founding documents were written the way they were was so that the government could not set up a church, much like the Church of England was set up through the process of the United Kingdom's government. So where that collusion has, well, they're calling it partnership. They're not calling it a collusion, which it actually is. And I think it's egregious because it's using our taxpayer dollars without our consent. And if you look at the religious background of our country, or the melting pot that it has become, not everyone may agree with using government services in connection to a church of any sort.
Yeah. Well, the same question could be asked for schools. Why government is so wrapped up in the schools? There should be a separation there. But this fact that there aren't people who go to church who are complaining about government, rubbing their grubby fingers all over everything that's supposed to be righteous. But it's this. I think the reason that they go through the churches is because people go there because they want to be good. They want to do
Right.
what's right. So these people were able to go in with their language that makes them
Mhm.
think they're doing right. This is good. This is for the common good. And
Right.
so now they can push them, nudge them in the direction of communitarianism and that religion.
And that's absolutely right, because if you look at Christianity, for example, in the New Testament, we are to be the hands and feet of Christ. It very plainly stated that it was not the government's job to look after the people, the widows and the orphans. It was the church's job. And where our government and governments like it, because this is not exclusive to America, where they've gotten in bed with this new world order, this commonality, this communitarianism, is through the United Nations. And the Catholic Church is one of the ringleaders to this. So finding out that you've got Chicago back in the 1980s with the Roman Catholic Church, well, Chicago is a United Nations hub for North America and South America. So here all you have to do is you have to peel back the layer to see that this is not so much about, okay, church, I want you to feel good about serving your community, as it is, as you have pointed out. Let's use language, let's nudge people into this one direction.
Yeah, and I more and more I've seen churches with their billboards that are pushing the LGBTQ agenda, and I don't have any problem with them being
Mhm.
tolerant and accepting, but the pushing and enforcing of these ideas and spreading that across the minds of the people in the community, it's kind of troubling.
Well, absolutely, because it was supposed to be the fact that, okay, our church can be supportive of people of all different backgrounds and all different professions and walks and beliefs and things like that. But you're not supposed to water down the church to fit society. You're supposed to have the church be a model of, here is true acceptance, here is God's love, that sort of thing. And we're not seeing that happen. Or if we are seeing it happen, it's in such a twisted view that it's no wonder people are so confused about what's going on. And as far as the propaganda from the government side, I mean, I've said it on camera before, I've said it in many interviews, I've said it on my blog. Our government is the biggest race baiter that we have going, and they're using government programs like these to help enforce that division. And what we need to understand is not going in for the division of beliefs or skin color, but the fact that it's us versus them. It's the fact of they have the money, they have the power, and they're using the control over us. And we're just being lemmings by lining up going, yes, please, may I have another? Because we're going to these government programs. I cannot tell you the number of ads I have seen on TV or on my phone about subsidies in the thousands and thousands of dollars for anyone who's eligible for Medicaid or Medicare. And you could use it for groceries, you could use it for rent, you could use it for anything that you want. And it clearly states, Joshua, that it's a subsidy. And we know anytime that the government gives us a subsidy, we will have to pay it back in one way or another.
It's it's like a new age welfare system, but it's being employed upon all members of society. And what did welfare do other than create dependence upon government, where people can't live without a handout?
Well, I think that's all grooming them for this United Nations new world order. Because if you look, the Catholic Church has been key in not only supporting that, but they've been key in supporting the one church, one religion aspect. And we've got resources for that as well. But how this ties back into the one church, one child, here is a quote from Pope Francis, and this will be in with the show notes. Quote, we're one human family, and the whole human family has been given this planet to cherish, to protect, and to nurture. We have to work together as a whole human family to make that happen. All right. The author of this particular article goes on to say, that's what Francis is telling us. To me, he's a prophet speaking the word of God. And I think for many, many people he is. But I hope to all people, everyone will begin to listen to this inspired word, because if we could really think of ourselves as one human family, we could break down a lot of barriers and a lot of hostility in this world, as well as better being able to protect our planet.
Yeah.
So are kids really the focus of this? I don't think so.
Language like one human family, it even to my ears that sounds like a great thing. I love Bob Marley's song One Love. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, let's get together. And these things that it's hard to really pick apart in front of the common ears and let show them how this isn't a good when it sounds so lovely and great. And even in my mind, I think that we should be more adoptive of different cultures and traditions and understanding other religions and belief
Mm-hmm.
systems. That is good for human growth and just understanding your place on this earth, but it should be done as an individual. It shouldn't be this enforced thing from your government telling you how you must fit in as a one human society.
Well, absolutely, because when you but here's the problem that I have with it, is because the words have been so chosen so carefully, so that it sounds like one thing, but yet it's ushering in something totally against what any of us would stand for. It's not going to respect our differences. It's not going to respect our cultures or our beliefs. It's going to say, no, here's the tune you have to march to. Here is the agenda that you have to agree with. Whether you do or don't is beside the point. And in the show notes, we're also going to have for you the One World Church. Now, the kicker of this is that this particular One World Church has been in the works for many years. And this particular article is from the Catholic Culture. It's written by a lady whose name I cannot pronounce. But here's what she says. It's Ferreira is her last name. One of the long-standing goals of the Masonic New World Order seems finally within grasp, and that is a one world church. In the making for over 150 years, it's about to become institutionalized as the United Religions Organization, otherwise known as the UR. Now, collaborating on the details are Bishop William Swing of the Episcopal Diocese, of California, the Communist Gorbachev Foundation of the United States, and the certain leaders of the Catholic Church. Now, it goes on to tell you how it was originally put into the United Nations Charter, and it goes on to go and tell you a detailed history of how this is supposed to work. But it falls right in line with this, okay, universal religion, where we're not worshiping God as God incarnate, God the creator. We're worshiping creation as our God. And that's a big disconnect for a lot of people, because you're taking away from the fact that we were even intelligently created. So go ahead.
Well, even as she mentioned there, it's nowhere near religion. She even said that it's an institution. They're
Yep.
institutionalizing all these things that are supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people, including religion. Um, so you mentioned UBI earlier,
Yes.
Universal Basic Income, and
Yes.
I'm I have not found anybody who is on the side of universal basic income who agrees with it. Maybe I'm just isolated, but I haven't found anybody who agrees with it. Yeah, it's still being pushed in various P3 programs. Why is UBI so important to the globalist resetters?
Well, I think it goes along with something you said earlier, which is the fact that we're going to groom people to be so dependent upon the government and what they're handing out that we will cease to think and exist for ourselves.
Okay. I wasn't prepared for a short answer. So
I'm sorry.
let me move on to my next question I have for you because it ties
Okay,
into UBI.
sure.
Can you discuss education savings accounts and how it further diminishes and absolutely controls our youth from cradle to grave?
Okay. Okay. Hang on just a second. Let me back up to universal basic income. Okay. Because I'm looking at my article that I wrote back in 2023. It's called How Much for the Children? Let's see. And it starts off with, have you heard of universal basic income? Well, did you know that education savings accounts are a form of universal basic income? That's right, because the more subsidized our government tries to make us, the more controlled by the government we become. So, that in a nutshell, Joshua, is a way to address the education savings accounts. It is a form of universal basic income because people are going to sit here go, oh, well, no, they're not. They're completely different because in universal basic income, the government gives me X number of dollars a year or a month. And then in the education savings account, I get X number of dollars and I can use it any way I want. BS and horse hockey. No, you can't. Parents are finding out that the states that are using these are kowtowing where they can use the money and how. And in some instances, there has been abuse of the system. So instead of using it to supply educational activities for your child, they're going out and buying cars or groceries, things that have nothing to do with education. So again, we're seeing our tax dollars, because that's where these education savings accounts come from. That's where universal basic income comes from, is our tax dollars. This is gross taxation without representation because we, the people, are not getting to vote. Hey, this is how I want my tax dollars used. And for those who want to argue about the education savings accounts, oh, well, it's my money. No, it ceased to be your money the second it left your bank account and went into the local, state, or federal taxation pool. You're using someone else's money when it comes back to you. That's how our taxation works. It's a clear violation of the clause that is in our Constitution about taxation and representation. But here's another thing that people don't want to understand about UBIs and education savings accounts is also tied with your taxation is your representation, meaning your vote. And with your vote is power. And when you stop using your power because the government is too busy supplying it for you, what happens to that vote? It becomes null, void, and unneeded. Go look at former Soviet Union Russia. One party, Joshua. It didn't matter how you voted because there was one party and it was the ruler.
Well, we have one party too, but
Well,
we
yes, we
make it
do.
seem as if there are more.
But it's the
Uh,
illusion.
Yeah, another thing about the education savings accounts is it furthers the industry of education instead of realizing that we could take education and basically make it free. We have ways that we could possibly do that. And instead of doing that, we're just going to keep people paying and we're going to keep them paying with tax money and keep them paying with loans and keep people in debt and make the entire system a little bit lower as far as economically. Um, where was I going with that? I lost. I'm a little bit
It's okay.
rusty here, just
It's
getting back
okay.
into the podcasting game.
It,
So
it's
I'm trying to.
absolute. Yeah, it's absolutely all right. But here's the thing: as far as some of the other model programs, because I went back and looked, the supposed win-win for Flint using universal basic incomes tied to education. Okay. And this is above and beyond the education savings account. Supposedly, by having RX kids, you're going to erase the intergenerational poverty in an entire city, because healthy moms and healthy children will have money to buy diapers, food, and have more time to bond. And the win for the city of Flint would be more economic gain, because after all, mom and dad are going to spend all their money in Flint. Well, maybe, maybe not. The sales pitch could rival the scene from the Blues Brothers, where you hear John Belushi going, "How much for the women and children?" Flint RX Kids is reeling in every expectant mom with cash, hook them in for more government or public-private partnerships, as well as the services. Now, it's not simply healthcare, but education. Now, other subsidized cities in America with a similar program. You have San Francisco, California, with their Abundant Birth Project. Lynne and Roxbury, Massachusetts, with their Family Health Project. You have New York City and Rochester, New York, with the Bridge Project. The longest running program in the entire nation, built on this premise of incentivizing health and education, can be found in Jackson, Mississippi, not too far from where you are, Joshua, and the Magnolia Mothers Trust.
So, Lynn, what educratic BS is on tap for 2024 elections, and what recourse have resistant parents and civilians?
Okay, the biggest educated BS and horse hockey on the docket for 2024 will, by large and far away, be school choice and education savings accounts. Because back in 2021, I believe it is, I cannot remember the exact date, but former Secretary of former Secretary of Education DeVos was trotted out on Fox News, and Freedom Works Caucus also came out in the news and said that the GOP would stop at nothing, and I repeat, nothing, to sway the 2024 election, and they were going to use school choice as one of the main widgets. Well, the reason DeVos is so key in this particular conversation is because she wrote a book just in time for the 2024 election cycle to start up with its campaigning, that education savings accounts were the GOP's answer to save you from the mean, nasty Democrats and all their BS and horse hockey in education. Well, now here's the thing. If you research like I do, you're going to find out, as you previously said, that one party that we have in America, that unibrow party, that one that's connected at the hip, the two birds of a feather, the Republicans and the Democrats, they both support it, just from different ends. So it's kind of like the image of, you have a turd. There's no clean end, but you're going to have the Republicans on one end going, "Well, if you pick up my end, it's going to save you from those mean, nasty Democrats and all their agenda and blah, 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 blah. They're all their indoctrination." And you come over here to the Democrat end, where it's not clean either, and you'll hear, "Well, the Republicans want to restrict you on A, B, C, and D. They want to stunt your child's growth and not have them be as okay, you're going to have to edit this part out. You're going to have them as idea forward, future ready as possible, because those old conservative values just aren't going to work." It's an argument that is diabolical to every one of us, because neither side is clean, neither side wins. It's the same problem. You look at the people backing school choice from either end of the spectrum. They have the same funders. How is that going to make it different? How is that going to make it freeing? Charlotte Iserbyt was one of the best whistleblowers when it came to the fact that when it comes to education, there is absolutely zero difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. And she started the work of proving that school choice would not only wipe out homeschooling and private education, it would shut it down, rebrand it as public, so that it could have a top-down control, not meaning DC to state control, but UN to your front door control, as well as deny representation in our government. So in other words, our vote won't matter. So why would we need an election? So as far as 2024 education BS, that's going to be the biggest one, school choice education savings accounts. But you're also going to have people who will never bring up the fact of we could ever lose our representative form of government. They don't understand that what they're voting for will be that death knell to representative government, even if it's as simple as removing the election for the school board. Because when you start removing local elections like that, how much of a jump is it going to be, Joshua, before you start removing state senators and presidents?
I love the analogy, two ends of the same turd. I once heard a comedian who said something like, the two-party system is a bowl of shit looking in the mirror at itself.
Well, I hate that we have to use such of an example, but I honestly cannot think of one that is more appropriate because I know people are going to listen to that. They're going to think, oh, well, they're just being, potty mouth. Stuff stinks. DC stinks. We cannot fix this from a top-down system. As far as what parents can do, you have to work at the grassroots level. You have to remember that, yes, while your government is so busy trying to deny your rights by selling you programs that will supposedly give you more rights, that there is a clause that you can use from the Civil Rights Act of 1981, Section 1983, which goes to tell you, Joshua, that anytime any person from the government, be it elected or appointed, any representative of the government, be it federal, state, local, school board, whatever, that anytime your rights are denied, your rights, privileges, or immunities that were secured in the Constitution are somehow violated or denied, that you have recourse not to go after that school board, not to go after that state board of elections, but to go after each and every individual on those boards. And why? Because they personally attacked or violated or deprived your personal right. Using a government office to do so is highly wrong and highly accountable as well as punishable. So, in other words, there's no statute of limitations on this particular section. It applies to any misuse of authority in office or someone representing an office. It includes your children. It can be used at state, federal, and local levels. It could go after school boards, healthcare centers, police, um, okay, excessive police force, personal property land grabs, any of the things that we see that are going on in our communities. We have this one law that gives us so much backbone to fight against this corruption and this collusion and this myopic vision that our government has for us. And people aren't using this. So have that conversation in the parking lot. Where are your child's rights being deprived? Where are your personal rights being totally trounced on? Use this section of this particular law. That is the Civil Rights Act of 1981, Section 1983. Cornell University on their legal school has an excellent description of how this particular section is supposed to work to represent we the people in a government gone corrupt.
So I recently wandered over to that dreaded site of the WEF, and I came upon the Education 4.0 framework.
Yes.
Uh, and there are 8 transformations for learning content. Um, excuse me. The very first one, this is their most important one, global citizenship skills. Why would that be first on the list? It's not about, helping you learn your own country, your own state, your own city. It's about the global community, as they call it.
Right.
They've
It's
already decided that your community is global. It's not your family and your neighbors, it's global.
absolutely, because that just breeds more collectivism. If you'll give me just a second, I'm going to go over to get a poster Hang
Okay.
on. Okay, Joshua, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the global pledge. This is the global citizenship pledge. Okay, I have a poster here, and I don't know if there'll be video with your podcast or not, but if not, here is the global citizenship pledge. This is by the group Non-State Citizenship. They are an actual Facebook group. And here's what it reads. And in the back of the emblem, you're going to see the United Nations. Okay. I hereby pledge in law myself as a natural human being to the global collective ideals of peace, liberty, sustainability, social responsibility in order to effectively adapt my lifestyle to further the reach of the 17 global goals for sustainable development, combat climate change, and take all the steps necessary to effectively become known as a global non-state, universal, or world citizen, free of discrimination when traveling and working abroad, notwithstanding my own nation state. I pledge myself to follow the natural order of the planet in respect of all the bodies of international law and civil order which provide me with these special rights, empowering me as a living individual stakeholder and active participant in world issues in international affairs governing the well-being of the planet and its ecosystems. So when you hear the number one goal from the World Economic Forum is that we need to be a global citizen, that's your definition.
Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but the second one is innovation and creativity skills. And we know that when they say creativity skills, they're definitely not talking in the way that we think of creativity, as in the arts, that type of thing. What they're talking about is, because the very next one is technology skills. That's what they're talking about, and system
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah, innovation has long been used as a buzzword. Oh, wait a minute, where'd you go? Okay, I lost you. Oops,
I see
hang on.
you
I know you see me, but I don't see you. Oh, snap. What happened? I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to pretend I can see you. Okay. Uh,
already.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to do a lot of editing on this one. Okay, but innovation has long been a buzzword for not only data collection, but blockchain existence. So when you hear that that's the second caveat to the WEF, then think about this. Well, blockchain's tied to what? Money. So they're setting you up as a commodity to be educated or indoctrinated, trained for their purposes, so that creativity is not what you can naturally create out of enjoyment of life, but what you're told to create. And yeah, it is to set you up for blockchain existence.
The last one is lifelong and student driven learning. Um,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so when I don't know how anybody would hear that as a good thing. We need our government pushing learning upon our elderly to the grave. That all that means is that they want you working to the grave. They want to work you to
Exactly.
death, literally. That means that they're going, the older that you live, the more training you're going to have to go through your life, more upskilling. That means you're going to become obsolescent over and over and over again and continually learn not new life trades and ways of bettering your own existence. It's going to be about how you can fit into whatever pipeline that exists in the future.
I couldn't have said it better, and that is spot on. It is cradle to grave, and that's what you mean by lifelong learning. It is not about, oh, I'm going to just enjoy learning so much that I never stop. I mean, that's what it's supposed to bring to your mind, but that's not at all, because you're exactly right. And Mark Tucker perfected that system. He perfected it over in Estonia and then has brought it back to America. Maryland was where he landed because Maryland is almost the same size as Estonia. And if you look at the way that Estonia takes care of its people, you're absolutely right. You work until you can work no more. And once you cannot work, well, the government sees fit to bring your demise about. And Maryland has been saddled with this as an example for the entire nation. Now, I don't think they'll go as far as to say, well, once you've, used up your usefulness, the government will see to your demise. Not yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if they go there because that is precisely what the system is supposed to do. Turn you into a commodity to be bought and sold, skilled, reskilled to fit a corporate government narrative, not bring about your own pursuit of happiness, not to give you life and liberty as we were guaranteed.
So you sent me a message the other night about a particular documentary that you're watching on Netflix called "Unlock the Jail Experiment,"
Oh
and
my stars.
it
Yes.
was it was very odd because I had just finished binge watching that documentary, and
Uh-huh.
if you haven't watched this, it's basically the sheriff. I don't know what you call the chief, the head sheriff guy. He decides that he's going to do this experiment, and he goes into this prison and he shapes it so that he's pulling out the guards out of the unit, and the doors are going to be open and the inmates can control themselves and decide how they're going to run up and operate the prison themselves, under, of course, all these different conditions that are under surveillance. But the guards are pulled out, and you uh, so you saw a lot of reflections on how that um, ties into the New World Order. So would you like to go over that a little bit?
Sure. Sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me about that, but no, I saw a lot of parallels in the fact that it was reward and punishment. It was it was a way to take more taxpayer money. I mean, I was absolutely flabbergasted. Every prisoner in this one unit, okay, and they use one unit. I cannot remember how many total units are in this one prison, but this is in Arkansas. And they take this one unit. First of all, they put a camera crew in there. And you know as well as I do, anytime somebody used to bring a camera to school, or a community event, you'd see all these people, oh, goody, a camera's here. And they start acting the fool because, oh, yeah, so and so will see me. And I could say, hey, I've been on TV, that kind of thing. Well, you see that right off. They start acting out. So, how much of this was real? How much of it was for action? I don't know. I do know that I saw that prisoners had use of iPads. Who pays for those? It's not those prisoners, it's us. It is us who pays for that. So I saw that. Then I saw, okay, well, they're being data tracked. They absolutely are. Their whole lives exist on buzzers. And what do we do with our kids in schools? We groom them to respond to buzzers. We groom them, especially in modern day, to respond to an iPad. So I saw that. Then I saw the way that there was reward and punishment. I saw how there was always that control. And anytime those inmates did something right, they got a privilege. The second they did something wrong, 9 times out of 10, a lot of it was glossed over, but some of it wasn't. You cannot expect a bunch of felons, and that's what each one of these people were felons. You cannot expect a criminally charged or a criminally mindseted person to have any true order in the way they run things. There was a hierarchy there. There absolutely was. There's a hierarchy in our government. All I saw was it was an experiment that mirrored some of what we're seeing our city governments do with city populations. Reward and punishment, incentivize this, reward them with that. I mean, think back to COVID. You had incentive programs like this all over the place. It just didn't make it to a documentary. And that was, oh yeah, come down, get your shot, get a free burger, get $20. I mean, you could get practically anything you wanted if you complied with the government program.
And one of the things that I noticed about how it reflects the way that we're being groomed in society towards is self-policing, where everybody's getting on each other and putting each other down anytime they step out of line, and it's no longer the duty of these guards; it's the duty of the inmates. Um, and this illusion of freedom that they're given just because the doors are open, and it's not really free, because right outside of those locked doors are the people watching the cameras. And that's just like our society is going now, where we're
Right.
just in a prison system, surveilled by cameras everywhere we go and every way that we live. And
Absolutely.
go ahead if you had something to say on
I
that.
was just was going to say that the United States has long been called the largest open air prison known to man, and we are, because we are surveilled. We are not, the only difference between you and I right now and those prisoners what we're referring to in this documentary is we can walk about our house. We don't have to ask someone if I can go outside and shoot basketball if I want to. Things like that. That's our illusion to freedom, though, because everything else is being watched. I mean, your phone watches you, your smart devices watch you, even your smart refrigerator watches you.
And this series comes out in 2024. And if we remember the lockdowns, that's a prison term.
Yeah.
And so we did have to ask permission to go outside and play basketball, and
Yes,
we
you're
were
right.
denied that permission. Um, One thing for a lot of people who have family members or friends or whoever in prison, even the ones that don't claim to be for profit, are making massive profits through your phone calls are outrageous, astronomical.
Mhm.
I mean, it can be a 5 minute call that ends up costing you $75. Um,
Wow.
just to send them an email, something that is free everywhere else in society, you
Mhm.
have to, it's called, I believe, JPay. It's these stamps you buy. So every
Right.
email you have to pay for a stamp. And then the food, you have to pay, if they want special privileges with food, chips and whatever, you have to pay outrageous prices for that. So they're making profit everywhere. But these are the things that I've noticed where it's these things that are typically free, like the
Mhm.
email or a phone call if you have a
Mhm.
data plan. These are free things. And now they're charging them. And I see this more and more in society, where things that used to be free,
Right.
you can't do anything free. Everything requires a subscription.
Well, yeah, but look at if you look at that particular documentary, notice what they're fed. Food fuels our body, and when you're fed junk, and when your commissary is full of nothing but junk, it's no wonder these people were crabby and had bad attitudes, because they're being so filled with empty calories and heavy carbs. I didn't see much fresh meat or fresh fruit. I didn't see much of anything other than, okay, we're going to load up on as many carbs as we possibly can. If you have someone with food allergies, that's a nightmare for them. Another thing I did not see in the documentary was I didn't see anyone who needed glasses, had special needs, or was some other skin color than white or black. I happen to know there are people of every skin color and every ability and disability who end up incarcerated. So, why was it cherry picked that it was this one able bodied unit? You have to look at what these documentaries are directing you to look at, because they're getting you so used to the idea of this is how we should treat each other that, and you just brought this up, that we're going to be policing ourselves. I mean, we already are being expected to by a large degree.
Yeah, and those division tactics where you say with the only the two races. But it was also in this series, it started off where the youth was against the elders were against the youth. And we have that playing out in society. And the only way they came together was to sustain the prison system, which
Exactly.
as the viewer, you're supposed to be rooting for them to do that. But I was rooting for them to rebel against it because you're supposed to rebel against prison. Nobody should accept their fate as a shackled being within concrete walls.
But would you stop and think about how society as a whole has okayed us being taken care of, Joshua? You have willing people who, okay, yeah, I did bad. I landed myself in jail. And I'm going to have to pay the price. I didn't see a lot of accountability. I saw a lot of blaming. It was always somebody else's fault. There was maybe one or two of the prisoners who, hey, I screwed up. I did it all on my own and I need to pay the price. There's prison has become a joke because the penal system has become a joke because you're not punishing people for wrongdoing. You're giving free daycare, is what you're doing.
And there was one scene where all the guys are getting high in this guy's room, I mean, in his cell, and they end up getting caught, of course, because they were idiots about it. And so it was the sheriff decided that he's going to punish everybody for this. But instead, the kid who was the most guilty of it all, he took the blame. So everybody else was off the hook, and he was slightly punished, but he was rewarded in a way at the same time for sacrificing himself, which is kind of like the days of the witch hunts, where if you just admit to it, your
Yeah.
punishment will be a little less, even though it was still death. um
I have so many questions about that series, and I think we could probably do another podcast on it because I want to look at how many tax dollars are being thrown into experiments like that and where else is doing it, because I don't think it's just one unit in one detention center in the state of Arkansas. I think, well, think about it this way. In education, the entire US military system, their schools and their children were subjected to Common Core as the test dummies. So you cannot convince me that there's one unit in one detention center in one state that is by itself in this experiment. The government has too much invested in controlling us to have it be that simple. There's got to be more to this story.
yeah, and if that documentary was real, which in the way it probably, the experimentations probably do happen, even if that particular documentary was staged.
Right.
um that's the MK Ultra thing. They were using prisoners for that. So we know that they
Absolutely.
are experimented on, and we're not told about it, and we have no vote on if these experimentations take place or not.
But our
And
tax dollars pay for it.
exactly. And so yeah, and if it fails, it could be deaths that could have been avoided. Like there were times when people were getting dragged into the cells and beaten up, but those could have been shanks instead of fists. And then they have female guards going in there by themselves, and how quickly they could have been dragged off into somebody's cell. And
Right.
yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah, I saw lots and lots of red flags in that particular documentary. And if you do happen to watch it, just be prepared for a lot of language. And so if you're offended easily, you may not want to see that. But yeah, I think if we do another podcast on this, we need to look at not what so much was said and shared, but what wasn't, because I think that's the bigger That's the bigger discussion.
Yeah, there was hardly any cameras on the sheriffs and the guards and the warden. There was there was nothing on that background because let's keep the masters behind the curtain, and
Yeah.
then the inmates are the ones that are always on camera.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because there were a couple of words that the sheriff used about, hey, this is a project and they have told us. And I'm sitting here going, well, who's the they? Who is the one responsible? Because a sheriff has got superiors. I know that. Um, he's not the be all end all. So who is really running this? And so, yeah, that's why I'm thinking let's have another discussion on that and let's look at what we weren't told.
Alrighty. Well, I'll lend the floor to you now for your ending statements, whatever you want to say.
Well, thank you so much for opening the podcast back up. And warts and all, we made it. And I just want folks to know that the more subsidized your child's health care or education becomes, the more control you are giving of your child over to an entity who claims to care for them, but does not love them and nurture them as you do. Be that be that wise parent, be that one who is the thorn in the government's side. Fight back. Use this clause for the deprivation of your child's rights. That's Civil Rights Act of 1981, Section 1983. Go back and look at the resources that Joshua will make available for you. Get yourself informed and educated because your mainstream media is not going to be talking about this, but we have got to because we have to divorce ourselves from thinking the government is my friend, the government is my nanny, or the government is my helper or my funder.
So, would you like to let them know where they can find your material?
CommonCoreDiva.com is the best place to find everything that we've talked about. And if not, you can send me an email at info@commoncorediva.com and I can point you to any resource that we've talked about that you cannot find on the website.
Well, this conversation has been a long time coming. We finally got here, and
Yes, we did.
it's been great, highly pleasurable. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you, Joshua. As always, anytime you want to talk turkey, we can do it.
All righty. You take care.
Thanks so much.
Please visit shitshooting101.com for more episodes, videos, blogs, and more to come. And if generosity compels you, go to the donation tab to help support the show to continue with no ads and no paywall. Either way, we appreciate your listens, follows, likes, and shares. Keep shit shooting, my fellow shit shooters, and bullshit be damned.
There's only one school of thought, and that is the school of thought. There exists no other options, as the alternative is unschooled thoughtlessness. Of course, there is a school of hard knocks, and Lord, how the knocking at our doors pounds louder and louder. It is a school board enforcing boredom. It is the school bells controlling time, the school bus controlling transit, the school lunch destroying diets, a school needing schooled in critical thinking and natural human existence. Our students are not a commodity, not an asset, not up for auction, not for sale, no way, no how. Our youth is not a pipeline, not a career path, not an investment opportunity. You and I are the learners, the teachers, and our own auditors of knowledge. We school the fish, and there is no big fish in charge of the pond. This is our pool, our ecosystem. We swim with our flow. And class is always in session. Love, peace, happiness. Signing off. Deuces.